Men, do you ever feel like you just can't get ahead? Like you're misunderstood? Like you have no one to talk to that truly hears you?
And women, are you often frustrated, hurt, and saddened in your relationships with the men in your life?
What if there were a community of like-minded men going through the same challenges that would support, hear, and understand what you're going through?
Working together in unison to create understanding, intimacy, and strong connections. That's the Way of the Illuminated Warrior.
Way of the Illuminated Warrior Talk Show is a forum of candid conversations for men and women about men. Being a man today is not always easy. Until now.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Way of the Illuminated Warrior Talk Show. I'm your host, Waska, and with me is Beth Perojic. Welcome. Nice to join me again, Beth. Nice to see you.
Absolutely. I'm a lifer, Waska. I'll be here whenever you need me. Whenever I can get my hands on you, and you and me will be together.
Love that. The people need you, Beth. The people need our conversations. Yes. So
I agree.
Happy to have you here. So we're going to talk today about the Anam Cara. And this was the last conversation I had with my men's circle, one of my men's groups, our telecircle. And we had some really interesting things come up. So I want to get a woman's perspective on this. An Anam Cara is a universal term. It's a Gaelic two words. Anam means soul and Cara means friend. So it's a soul friend.
Oh, cool.
And okay. A soul friend is somebody that you could just bare your heart and soul to, tell them your deepest, darkest thoughts and even secrets, and there's no judgment. There's no, well, why don't you do this? You should have done that. None of that. It's somebody who has your back, you're willing to give them your heart and your hands, and likewise, and you support each other. So so it's a Celtic, it's a very old Celtic way of being. So so we bounced that around last night. Talking about, do you have an Anam Cara in your life? Who do you say I love you to? Because that's a large part about it. I mean, to be in that space and to really cherish somebody so much that you could be totally present for them and hold them in that regard. I think love really needs to be part of that. So, who do you love? Do you tell your friends that you love them? Who do you go to when you have troubled thoughts or challenges in your life? Do you have an Anam Cara? So I'm going to open that up and ask you, Beth, do you have an Anam Cara in your life?
You are enlightening me, my dear friend, because I'd never heard of that term before, and I love learning something new. How do you spell it?
Here comes my wise ass New York, IT. That's how I spell it.
He did it, fans. He did it.
Anam Cara by John O'Donohue. Great book.
I love John O'Donohue. Okay.
Yeah,
gotcha.
He's really offered a lot of great wisdom. So yeah, really good book. Highly recommend it.
Okay, beautiful. Let's plug that for him and his people. That's amazing. So Anam Cara, very cool. And the easiest translation, as you just said, is soul friend. Soul friend,
yes. So do you have a soul friend? Do you have an Anam Cara that you can?
I do. She's what I would call my bestie, I guess. And I seriously, I've thought about this before, but I seriously think she might be the only person that really accepts me for who I am, because I don't hesitate any longer. Now we've had a 30 year relationship, me and my friend. I've learned how to be vulnerable with her. And I'm not afraid any longer. I think that's when I really realized she was a soul friend, is that I wasn't afraid to mess things up with her or say things inappropriately, or maybe she wouldn't want to hear it this way. I just this was probably about 10 years ago. I just decided to just go, screw it, man. I'm going to be completely open, completely vulnerable, and things in our relation. And she did the same. So we kind of had a little bit of a ceremony around that. And our relationship has really flourished since then. We've raised our children together. She's divorced, I'm not, but she's seen me through ups and downs in my relationship. Like, there's just, no bars held with her. Yeah. That's why I call her my soul friend. There are no bars held.
Yeah. And one of the huge things that came up last night, and I was waiting for one of the guys to bring it up, is trust. There really has to be a trust there with this person, and it could be more than one. If you have more than one Anam Cara in your life, what a blessing. I mean, to have even one though, I think is pretty incredible and a great blessing. But trust is like essential, because if you're going to bare your heart and soul, and like one guy was saying, it's like, well, my darkest thoughts. He's like, I don't know. I don't think I want to like tell anybody my deepest, darkest thoughts. And we had the conversation. Well, do these thoughts that you're thinking of now, even, they keep coming up? Are they repetitive thoughts in your head that are causing suffering? Are they causing problems in relationships? Are they just not, healthy to even have in there? Because just the fact that you can have somebody who will listen to you without judgment and get it out there is a huge release. And actually, he shared, he's not big on that, but he does write down things, because we've gone over exercises where you could write down things that you want to release, and then either keep them in a journal, or if you want to like burn them and transmute the energy that way.
Sure.
He's done that. So the trust is huge, and actually just being able to release anything that's just not healthy for you to somebody who's willing to just take that. It's like, kind of like, I always go back, I said, get out on the land. It's like the earth, like Mother Earth, go out on the land and just lay on her, hug a tree, whatever it is. And the earth can take it. So same thing. And Anam Cara can take it, and the earth can take it. Yeah.
How about you, Waska? Do you have an Anam Cara? Are you fortunate enough to have one?
I would say, when I think about that, actually, this book came from our mutual friend.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Simi. So Simran is my Anam Cara, and I like to think I am hers as well.
Wonderful.
Which is a beautiful blessing. And, I really do feel blessed in that relationship, because I can say pretty much anything to her. And actually, she insists on, don't sugarcoat, don't, speak your truth. And I'm much about that. Even like I've said to her before, well, I'm thinking like, if I said this, I might hurt your feelings. And, it's creating sort of a codependent relationship, but it's like, that makes it more about me. It's like, don't be concerned about, don't be concerned about my feelings or how she's going to receive it, but like, speak your truth with compassion, as I always say, and, allow that relationship to develop. Because we don't always want to hear certain things. We don't always want to say certain things, but if it is coming from the heart, when it comes from the heart and it's truth, it's a really beautiful way to take the relationship to another level, trusting somebody that I'm going to tell you something as your friend, as your soul companion, that you may not want to hear, but in my estimation, it's going to be helpful for you. So I'm going to say it. And that's what a soul friend does.
Absolutely. And it also speaks to the intention. So we might hesitate to say something to our Anam Cara, thinking that it's going to hurt their feelings. But if you do, to your point, go into your heart and say, I know what my intention is. My intention is to be kind, but my intention is also to speak my truth for myself, and trust that the benefit for that other person, it will be there. As benevolent human beings, right? I think that's really, really key. And I'll add something to that too, because when I think of my friend who I was talking about, we had to learn to say, or have crucial conversations. That's probably the better way of saying it. When something was really up with me, wanting to express to her, we would just set the stage by saying, I might say something that make you uncomfortable. My intention is to say it with love in my heart, and it always goes better. It always goes better.
All right. So that just brings something up for me. So when I've done this recently. So when I say to a woman, I don't think you're going to like this. So I'm already telegraphing, and there's almost always a response like, well, if you're saying that already, they're not even listening anymore with an open mind. It's like,
right.
And I'm projecting also by saying that, well, you're not going to necessarily like this. In your experience, like how does that affect you? Like if your husband or somebody close to you says like, you're not going to like this, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Well, I'm going to let a little bit of my spiritual evolution come through here, to be honest with you, because I've worked this aspect of my life for years and years and years and years and years. Like it's almost always been a little devil on my shoulder, like the thing. So I've learned to remain incredibly curious, and decided a number of years ago that however a teaching was going to come to me that would benefit me, I had to be open to it. And so when you open yourself up like that, you're going to get somebody like your spouse or a friend saying, you're probably not going to like this, but, and as soon as I hear that now, I always consider that almost like a direct channel from the universe. Okay, Beth, here comes something that's meant to teach. This person, like, people wouldn't say things like that to me. I don't believe I attract people like that into my life if they're there to hurt me or to harm me. They're sincerely trying to help. So I will find and I will dig in whatever it is that they have to say and find my lesson around it. But that has only been as of late. Like it took some doing for me to do that. Yeah, it took, because I would always go on the defensive, right? I'd say, wait, the hell are you coming at me with that thing for? Like that, what the hell? It must be something you must be reflecting. You know, you need to turn the mirror on yourself. Well, that didn't work over time, right?
That's the usual response that I've received is defensiveness. And, you know, my intention is never to, you know, hurt anybody's feelings or tweak anybody's emotions or anything like that. So I was just wondering, like, in your perspective, that if it's better off not even saying that.
Yeah, well, you know, there is something to be said for that. So again, in these beautiful relationships, it's generally my intention is to, how can I help? How can I serve? But I trust that I will be divinely guided with the right words. And it doesn't always, of course, it doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
But for the most part, can you give us an example? I bet you people are dying for an example of what you mean by saying, you're probably not going to like this, but.
Sure. And, you know, just to give you kudos, that's a higher vibrational way of being, what you're describing, the work that you've done on yourself, and being willing to look at it as a mirror and not project back on somebody else. So kudos to you.
Well, thank you. But I'm repeating myself. I don't do it all the time. Sometimes.
Wow, that's okay. It's acknowledge the positivity of that and the, you know, that you have done the work. So as an example, and I'm very careful, like, when I proceed with that. So it's my belief that when I say something to somebody that I don't think they're going to like, I'm trying to think of a specific without giving out a specific, that I don't want to reveal any personal conversations. Somebody might be watching this that be like, hey, and get defensive. So for instance, I would say, or have said, you know, I felt that you were defensive. So rather than saying, you know, you were defensive, my feeling was that you got defensive with me. Or I felt that I try to be mindful of how I would say it, even though in my experience I am projecting. Like, as soon as I even say the word defensive or argumentative, those are not words that people are going to be like, oh yeah, I was defensive and argumentative. You know, it's not the kind of thing that people generally want to acknowledge. Yes, that's the way I was. So my intention when saying is to be as soft as I can, even though, and maybe I could use other words, but those are my true feelings. And if that was my experience, I'm going to share that. You know, my experience was like, you said this, and I felt very, you know, hurt by that. And, you know, I find it's best maybe even ask it as a question. Were you feeling defensive? You know, and I don't always do that. I might say, you know, it felt defensive to me. And then the response has been, you just called me defensive. Okay, technically I didn't call you defensive. I'm just sharing my feelings. And then sometimes it just goes in a different direction. And then I feel like, well, should I have even brought that up? And, you know, how do we come to a better place of communication here?
Mm-hmm. And do you find that, I would say, of course, nothing's 100% for the most part when you approach it like that, and you're, I'm going to say, gentle and kind in your approach around that it's mutually beneficial then, for the most part?
You know, I think the truth comes out of how each person is feeling. And if it's something that really tweaks one or the other, like you said, it's a good mirror. We could look at that and say, like, why is this tweaking me so much? Why am I being defensive or argumentative? Why is this other person feeling that I'm being defensive or argumentative? And my approach even with that is because I don't like to argue. And, and if somebody says, I feel defensive or you seem to be defensive, I'm going to look at that and say like, okay, what did I just say? What was I feeling? Because a lot of times it goes back to other things like we talked about this before, what an engram is. It's an implanted emotion seed button that's been pushed that relates to something totally different, but it's pushed a button like now in this moment, and it may have no relation to what just happened. So I like to look at those things and say, okay, why am I feeling this? And does this even have anything to do with what just happened? And that's the beauty of having like an Anam Cara, to have somebody who will reflect back to me if I share the story. And of course, it's coming from my perspective, not the other person's. Like, hey, this is what just happened. Do you think I was, being uncool or uncouth, or does that sound like my stuff? And I have, an Anam Cara that would say, well, that sounds like blah, 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 whatever their perspective is from a neutral point. And I would sit with that, and I may not like what I hear. I'd be like, okay, that's what I thought also. That's the beauty of having like a soul friend who will tell you what their objective viewpoint is without telling you what you want to hear, because that doesn't really serve
that's
moving forward and raising your vibration as a human being, right?
Yeah. Do you believe that we can have more than one?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And then go ahead. I'll go. Because this is what I was thinking. Yeah. I can see now that we're having this conversation, I always glean something so important for myself when you and I have these conversations, how at different stages and phases of my life there have been. So I guess those relationships can sometimes change and morph, I suspect. And now you've got me thinking about a couple of people who probably are my Anam Caras, and I'm a little anxious thinking about how I would be so well accepted by them, but with some hesitation on my part. Like I'm actually emotional right now. Wow. This is very cool.
We'll be right back after this. Hey guys, this is Waska. Listen, if you're hearing my voice, there are no coincidences. Are you ready to get unblocked and take the next step forward, whether it's with relationship issues, finances, or just moving into the next phase to elevate yourself? Listen, bros, this is what I do. I'm here for you. Drop me an email at Waska, that's WASKA, at ILLUMINATEDWarrior.com. We will work on this together and take you to the next step. I promise you'll be glad you did. That's great. That's something you could explore now with them, and even share with them and say, hey, I think of you as this soul friend, and see how they feel about that. Turn it to be a beautiful conversation. Yeah. Well, one of the brothers last night said, just for clarification, his first question before we even got into it was like, is an Anam Cara always somebody else, or could it be your higher self? Which I thought was a fantastic question. By definition, and what my understanding is, it usually is somebody who can reflect back and share that space. But I think why not? Why can't it be your higher self? Because a lot of times we were also talking about our spiritual guides and allies and things like that. And I believe that our higher selves very often come through as spirit guides. And we're guiding ourselves through dimensional space and the multi-dimensional universe that we live in. Why can't it be our higher self talking to us? So an Anam Cara, beautiful thing, we can be our own soul friends. And in addition to that, I think it's really beneficial to have another human being. I was going to say a two-legged, because it came up also four-legged.
The four-legged,
They're phenomenal. They are all Anam Caras, or at least most of them are.
Absolutely.
We can learn so much from them. They're there for us. They're always happy to see us. They're cheerful, and we can learn a lot from them. So, yeah. So I want to ask you something. So something that came up listening to, Man After Man last night, most of them had a very hard time saying, I love you to their friends. Not all of them, and some was cultural because not everybody's from this country. But looking at what I'll call the norm of Canada and the U.S., close friends for men. It's for most men that were on this call, and I think if I did a poll, I would say a lot of them have a hard time saying "I love you." So, from a feminine perspective, do you tell your friends that you love them, and do you hear that back?
I do. Yes, to answer both of those questions. The one friend I was speaking of, we never. It's almost like a spousal thing. You just never leave your spouse or never leave the conversation without saying "I love you." Never.
Beautiful.
Never. And that includes texting. You know, if she texts me or something like that, there's always a heart. There's always a heart. There's always a heart. So that for me is very natural and very easy. I'm a very verbally I love you kind of person anyway. Or even to just sometimes I'll just say out of the blue, I really, really like that. I really, really love that you did that. Or it's very easy and natural for me. So I don't have any problems in that department at all. And in fact, sometimes it's the opposite. I have to reel it in a little bit because I could send texts to people who are, you know, they're not quite that close to me and not quite that far away. And I'll always say with love at the end. And I'm like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that, right? So that's, but let's give your gentlemen participants credit because, in being vulnerable for sure, but you're not trained for that, you guys, for the most part, right? And that's such a shame. It's such a shame that it's more of a learned skill. They have to work on that, right?
Well, we have to work on that because what we were talking about and our belief is that most of us were taught from a young age, you know, again, the typical stereotypes, you know, be a man, you know, don't cry, keep your emotions in, don't express, don't emote. And we bury that sacred feminine part of us, which we all have. We've talked about this before. We all have masculine and feminine within ourselves, and not to acknowledge that we have this intuitive, compassionate, passionate, nurturing, matriarchal part of ourselves as men is leaving half the picture out. It's like, only half of me. How do I do this? Only half of me is in the frame, you know?
Right.
I mean, you know, you got to have the whole picture in a holistic, healthy way to be balanced. So it's really important. And that discussion was that, you know, hey, express the love, express yourself. And if people are uncomfortable with that, okay, that's their choice and all. See how it goes. I started, actually, this is really interesting flashback. I was a very small, little dude at the time, and I remember thinking, like, how come we don't say we love each other in the family? And I'm like, and I'm this is my memory anyway. I'm going to take credit, like I started, you know, I love you. And I remember, like, me and my sister were having a competition at the time. Like, I would first say it to my dad, like, I love you, I love you, I love you. You know, like ad nauseum, you know, because we were little kids. And then my sister would say it to my mom, and then we would switch. And I'm like, and we started saying it after that. I'm like, wow, why is 3 little words, which holds a lot of power and, you know, feelings and emotions, why is it so hard for some of us to say, you know?
Yeah. And good for you for being a good little teacher in your family.
Yeah. Well, I was taught things too.
No, blessings on that. That's absolutely terrific. And coming from a kid just helps plant that seed that it's okay to say it, as you know, try to have those kinds of breakthroughs when you're 30 and you know, get the words out of your mouth when you're 30. That's really, really hard. I like that. That's awesome.
My recollection is I probably was 5 or 6 at the time.
Wow.
And we know, like, but by the time you're 7 or 8, a lot of things have been implanted from parents, from peers, from teachers, from whatever societal impressions that we've gotten. So it's really like an unlearning, which was what we were talking about, because the one brother, he's like, yeah, I tell my friends, you know, all the time that I love them, which is awesome. So he didn't have that particular stigma growing up, which was wonderful. The other guys, like myself, to a degree also, we did have that kind of not expressing, certainly not saying I love you, it's just like such a heavy thing to say for so many people, but it's also such a beautiful thing. And it is really like a microcosm of what's going on in the world right now. We're not seeing a lot of love going on in a lot of different ways, women, children, elders, men just being slaughtered with this whole, really hopefully not a third world war, but what's going on within each of us. We all like in turmoil, because it is really kind of a microcosm when the individual, all of us, could have that collective mindset of like, what, let's spread the love. And I know it sounds like, cliche and esoteric and all that, but really, if we live with open hearts and really care compassionately and empathetically for everyone, everything's going to be great. Our personal relationships are going to be so much better, and it's going to emanate, throughout the world. So I think it's really important.
And so it starts in here, right? It starts with holding some kind of loving space for this crazy world, but inside and understanding. Well, you and I understand this well. People of our ilk would understand this very well. It does make a damn difference. It does. It does. So as much as you'd like to say, what can little Beth Project do in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada to help the world? I'm just going to hold space of love. That's what I got. I pray and I hold space of love, and that's what I got. And I just believe that putting that out in the ethers makes a difference. Certainly makes me feel better and makes me feel like I'm contributing something to a space that I don't know what the hell to do. So praying and loving is what I got.
Yeah, spread the love. Absolutely. Yeah. So, I'd be curious, the differences between how men and women generally, feel about this, because it's, again, in the work that I do with the men, the majority have a hard time, other than the ones who have been doing, personal spiritual awakening work, have a hard time expressing, have a hard time telling their partners how they really feel, keeping things from each other. One of the inquiry questions was, who do you go to when you need support? Who do you feel comfortable telling what you need to get out? And a lot of times, a lot of the guys are, well, I just keep it in, I don't feel like I need to tell anybody anything, and that's not everybody. I mean, other guys had different stories, but I feel it in my heart space. I'm like, hey, bro, find an Anam Cara, find a men's circle, find a brother, because so many guys really want this. They really want to have a brother that, all right, if you want to talk sports, if you want to talk about, whatever, that's all good. But get real, because there's not one of us that doesn't have something going on in their lives that we could use some support, and I tell the guys all the time, if you don't have somebody that you could share what's weighing on you, it's not healthy. There's no balance there. So it's really important. I really invite all the guys to find somebody, again, men's circle, brother, whoever it is that you could open up. Find an Anam Cara, put it out there, invite the Anam Caras in.
This has been a really exciting conversation, because I've learned so much, and it's like having a private therapy session with Waska, but we're out there in the ethers. A lot to really, really think about and to be blessed about. I will be calling my friend later on today, and I'm gonna tell her about our conversation and indicate to her that she is in fact my Anam Cara. I love that, and I'm going to work on the other one, that other person that I'm thinking about that probably could be. I'm going to dig deep on that and see what I come up with.
Excellent. Well, that's beautiful. And that's really all it is putting out an invitation, So I invite anybody who's listening, think of somebody in your life that you'd like to establish that Anam Cara relationship, and invite that in and see where it goes. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. So what would you like to leave our listeners with today, Beth?
Well, I would like to leave them with discovering who your Anam Cara is or are, if you've got more than one of them. And I think part of the exercise that I'm going to go through, so I may as well share it with everybody else, is I'm going to do a little journaling around that. Nice long list of everything that I'm grateful for that person. And maybe even some of those, I remember the time she taught me the lesson about X, and I remember the time she told me those jeans didn't look good on me, and so I changed. And just little things that will help me solidify more in my heart and my soul and my head how special this person is to me in my life. That's what I'm going to do.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah.
What are your
wanna
closing remarks?
Yeah, just extend that same invitation to find somebody who you'd like to be an Anam Cara for. Start that way, because the reciprocity will come. So I will elaborate that we are offering ourselves as an Anam Cara for somebody, not because we expect something in return. So to be there, to hold space, to be present for somebody is really the essence of what it is. Not to judge them, to just be there, to listen, to feel, to acknowledge, to validate. And believe me, in time, it will be reciprocated. So it's, to give is to receive. So I will just leave it on that note. And
I like that a lot, Waska. Very good. Very good.
All right. Well, people, continue to tune in to listen to Beth and I ponder the mysteries of the universe, and
we're so good at it.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, everybody's got some pearls of wisdom out of this. If you like the show, like us, subscribe to us, and check us out again. So until next time, illuminate your paths with loving kindness.
Namaste, everybody.
Visit IlluminatedWarrior.com if you'd like to go deeper and find out more about what's available within the Illuminated Warrior Men's Transformational Community. Tune in next time for more candid conversations for men and women about men on the Way of the Illuminated Warrior Talk Show. Until next time, illuminate your path with loving kindness.